recap on YouTube here. All right, so that's a recap, right, for gold prices from November 6th. And then take a look at Bitcoin. So remember that criteria for that signal would be a daily close above 106, right? And again, the same thing, potential target there, the 21-day simple moving average. So right now, as we speak, let me just pull up this chart here for Bitcoin. Let's go over to this one instead. Right, so as you can see here, I know we've got a longer term view here, but right now, again, doing battle with that 106 mark, right? Big jump up, a gap up for today. And once again, at psychological level, traders like to do battle. Both those who think that prices can go higher, bulls, and those who think that prices should be lower, the bears. I know we've got some bulls and bears who've been watching and giving me comments here in recent days, right? So once again, prices doing battle around that 106K mark. So we need to see that daily close above that big round number 106000. Then that could potentially send a signal for more gains ahead, right? To be clear, none of this is financial advice. This is this is purely a guidance of, sorry, not guidance, but some analysis and what picking out what we are seeing across markets and how different assets are behaving to the news, right? So, and we're just sharing this with you. At the end of the day, please do your own research. Looks like we have the folks on YouTube joining us live right now. So let me just go back to the chart that we showed right at the onset. Thank you so much for joining us on YouTube and X, wherever you are. Do give us a shout out, right? Drop in the comments where you're viewing from, and if this is your first time, definitely welcome, right? So once again, so this was a price target, that 21-day simple moving average that we had highlighted on November 6th. Feel free to scroll through on the YouTube channel for Bybit Learn. Remember, this is for Bybit Learn, and you can find it on X as well. We had highlighted that 21-day simple moving average as a target, even from November 6th, that was Thursday. Criteria number one, we needed that daily close above 4K mark. It got to 4,000.25, as you can see on the top left-hand screen there. If you hover, top left-hand side of the screen there, if you hover your mouse over this daily candlestick, 4000.25, that was the closing price. But today, because of that news that the Democrats in the Senate are perhaps easing up on their resistance towards the US government shutdown, they have gone against their fellow Democrats and perhaps passed a measure, or they have voted for a measure that could bring the longest US government shutdown in history to a sooner than expected close. Again, to be clear, it's not set yet, and we'll get more into those details about what to look out for to move this process along. But as far as we are concerned, I'm pretty stoked here that 21-day simple moving average target price that we highlighted last Thursday has already been hit. Okay, and for those of us joining on YouTube, if you missed it, once again, 4,100 big round psychological level. Prices breached it briefly, but then came back down. Once again, big round numbers acting as resistance. Okay, so that was the goal. We go to Bitcoin. Okay, so the story here is we got to wait and see if we get that daily close, but from a fundamental daily close above 106,000 mark. But from a fundamentals perspective, you need more reasons, right, for this risk on mode, or for markets to be willing to take on more risk, be it the imminent end of the US government shutdown or from other parts of the economy, that says that, hey, it is time to now push Bitcoin higher and come back into cryptos and potentially the rest of the crypto universe as well. We're seeing the same thing, not just for gold, but for even stock indices as well. I'll just pull this up here real quick. This is the S&P 500 that we have on Bybit. Again, you can find all these assets like the S&P 500, like gold, even more commodities, forex pairs, all under the TradFi section of the app and also the website. But you see this nice gap up for the S&P 500 even as we speak for today. Okay, so risk assets clearly moving right now. Let me just show you some other charts on Bitcoin. I know you guys love these. Let me just go back to the Bloomberg terminal here. Now, and if you have been spending enough time on social media, you probably would have seen some variations of these as well. So now, for example, this is a new one. This is the weekly chart. Okay, so each of these blocks, each of these candlesticks represents how Bitcoin performed within 1 week. That's a weekly time frame, as opposed to the earlier chart we showed you, the daily time frame. You can always I'll just go back to Bybit here real quick. You can always change all those time frames in the top left hand corner here. You can go down to 1 minute, you can go up to 1 month, right? That works. So in this case, this is I'm just going to my Bloomberg terminal here. This is the weekly time frame. So look at how, again, we talk about support, right? This has been a key support level for Bitcoin prices really for the past couple of years. Since 2023, right, you see bounce right off, again, support. Couple of episodes in 2024, hits that floor, bounces right back up, right? We saw it earlier this year as well, and just this past week, right, when there were a couple of times when Bitcoin actually dipped briefly, keyword briefly, below the 100,000 mark, 0.1 million, right? Then bounce right back off. Now, of course, there are still bears who have their say right now. They think their prices could go lower. I think there are a lot of fundamental factors that we'll be keeping an eye on for, in particularly the Fed as well, right? And we'll be talking more about the Fed and why they are so important to not just cryptos, but to stocks, gold, the dollar. Basically, the most, in my opinion, the biggest and most influential factor that you have to watch in the markets right now, besides, of course, President Trump's various musings, right? So, but something definitely to highlight, that 50-week simple moving average, that's SMA, has been a key support for recent weeks. And then I'll go back to another chart that we had shown last week as well. Just a reminder, right? So once again, this is a different variation. It shows the standard deviations for Bitcoin moves. Again, this is on the weekly chart again, right? So again, historically, right, since 2023, over the past couple of years, you've just seen it kind of bounce right off. I won't go into too much technical details. In other words, it'll be very, very unusual, almost like a 5% chance for prices to dip below those outer bounds of this of these lines here. Okay, so again, support. We have to see if this support holds. I think only time will tell. I'll be focusing on the fundamental stuff. Okay, so going back to the slides that we had shown previously. Just as a reminder of the potential setups, just as ideas. Again, this is not trading advice, right? But this is something to keep an eye out for. Right, so gold already hit. I'm gonna have to update this one here pretty soon. But at least we are celebrating this for now. That hey, this stuff works, and then we'll keep an eye on the Bitcoin one to see if this setup proves true as well. Okay, quick reminder: if you are joining us on X, you would have probably seen this QR code already. For those on YouTube, we'll probably post it in the comments here after this live stream. So look, we here at Bybit Learn, we're all about learning. I almost sound like a broken record now, but I think that, hey, learning in and of itself really makes you make better, more informed decisions in the markets, be it as a trader or an investor. I think that is a reward in and of itself. The very fact that you are joining us shows that there's a keenness to learn. So well done to you. But of course, here at Bybit Learn, we want to make it that bit sweeter. So make sure you scan the QR code to stand a chance for your share of 25,000 USDT in rewards and potentially more. All right. Why do I say more? Because when you scan the QR code, you'll actually be landing onto this particular page that I'll pull up on the screen here. Right. And you can see that, excuse me, within this page, there are all these different tasks that you can complete to earn even more rewards. Right now, heads up, if you are a new user and you don't have a Bybit account yet, well, guess what? You automatically get, just by completing this task of registering or signing up, excuse me. Sorry, it's up here. Excuse me. right over here, right? So you verify your identity, and also going back to inviting friends and signing up, right? You automatically get a chance to also then earn even more points as well, right? So don't miss out. Scan that QR code for potentially more rewards. If nothing else, at least a chance at your share of 25,000 USDT in rewards. Okay. There we go. All right, cool. Here's something else that I'm really excited about. So we spoke about how gold has really hit the target. Bitcoin potentially sending us a bullish signal. We have to wait and see. But if you go to the Bybit website, again, that's just bybit.com, not the Learn website, which is my home. You go to bybit.com, click on markets. At least earlier today, we saw something really interesting, and I hope that is still the case right now. So again, you can find many of these assets under TradFi. You've got metals like gold, individual stocks like Tesla, Nvidia, Apple, you name it, it's there. We got indices, and this is something we had highlighted here as well. Now check this out, okay? Let me try and zoom in to make sure you guys can see this. And I hope, more importantly, I hope you didn't miss out on this, right? Because look at the very top. Okay, I filtered them, or I've ranked them by 24-hour change. The best performing stock index on within the Bybit universe right now is CHINAH. For those of you who are watching, last Friday, I had already previously, even from last Friday, selected this as my asset to watch this week, right? Now, of course, a lot of the events that I had highlighted hasn't even happened yet, but it's the propensity, or that the size of that move, which really, I like to think validates the selection for this asset as one to watch this week, right? So for today, best performing or biggest gainer among all the indices offered by Bybit, and you can scroll down to see all the different ones here. You got the Nikkei 225 from Japan, and of course in the US, you've got the S&P 500 that we showed earlier, and the Nasdaq 100. Right there as well. For those of you UK fans or European fans, you got the FTSE 100 here, and the Stocks 50 here for Europe as well. Okay, so remember, if you are new to indices, just know this: an index is a way to measure something. In this case, these indices measure different baskets of stocks. Okay, yeah, feel free to go check that out on the main site. But going back to a slide that we had shown last Friday, right? If nothing else, I hope this live stream builds some FOMO among you guys here. Because this is something that we had highlighted in a week ahead preview. Let me just pull up this slide. Right, so we asked the question, well, is it going to hit a fresh 4-year high? As of Friday, prices were only about 5% below that recent peak, which was the highest in 4 years, right? And so these are the events that we had highlighted that is on the agenda for this week. And I'm sure some of you are already enjoying those Singles Day sales from not just the weekend, I think even from last week, right? So here's something to look out for. And because Alibaba, the likes of Alibaba and JD.com, they then also make announcements about how much sales they did during the Singles Day sales. If you recall, last year they had to extend their Singles Day sales campaign. They extended it to about a week or so, longer than usual, because of some of the concerns surrounding how much China's consumers actually spending money. Right? So to see what kind of announcements come out this year. Recall also that November 11th, 2024, Alibaba stock actually spiked up for the day, but it wasn't enough to last. It fell back down the following day on November 12th, but still, it presented some short-term trading opportunities for traders. Now, to be clear, the reason why I'm highlighting the likes of Alibaba and Tencent and JD.com, because they are among the biggest members of that basket of stocks, right? Remember, the index, the CHINAH index, measures a basket of companies that are in China who have shares listed in Hong Kong. All right, so Tencent and Alibaba are the biggest two by far, and then you got JD.com as well. They've got earnings coming up in the days ahead. So long story short, even with the CHINAH already today's best performer within the Bybit universe, if there's more good news coming up in the days ahead because of Singles Day, because of here's the CHINAH stock index. Looks like I missed that one. Let's try and bring that back. Come on, you. There we go. All right. So if there's more good news in the days ahead, this could potentially close that gap between currently 9415 to around 9771, which is that recent high. So only about probably 3-4% right now away. But we still got plenty more time in the coming days, right? So something to keep an eye on, given what the calendar has in store for Chinese stocks. With that said, let me just pull up something real quick. The curiosity is getting the better out of me. US markets are about to open here very shortly. So in about 10 minutes from now, that's the cash session. I'm going to see how Alibaba is performing in the pre-market on my Bloomberg terminal here. So Alibaba right now in pre-market, up about 1% here. That's for Alibaba. You can see 0.9% there. It seemed to have exceeded 1% earlier in the pre-market session. But for now, 0.9 as we speak. So let's also look at JD.com. Let's see how they're faring in the pre-market. Give me a shout out if you guys can see this screen here quite clearly. JD.com seeing the opposite, right? Down 0.6% in pre-market. Unfortunately, Tencent doesn't have stocks listed in the US, but there's a barometer there, a bit of a mixed bag. So we'll have to wait and see, right? How any of these stocks fare, not just during the cash session, but what they say in particular about the ongoing Singles Day sales. And sure enough, Bloomberg agrees with me. I said this from last Friday. They just posted this an hour ago. Got to look out for the likes of Alibaba and JD.com, right? Because you got some earnings coming up, right? And some other corporate news as well. But yeah, so let's still, whatever it is, we'll see if that momentum for the China H stock index for today, being the best performing stock index within the Bybit universe, whether that momentum will actually continue for the rest of this week. Okay. Now, folks, look, we're going to try and keep it short here. If you got any questions, thank you for the love on YouTube there. If you got any questions about anything in the markets, really, feel free to drop them in the chat, be it on YouTube or X or wherever you may be. I believe on X you see that little text box in the bottom left-hand corner. We'll be more than happy to try and address some of the thoughts and comments that you have. Okay. Before we we spend the last few minutes just talking about the potential timeline for the US government shutdown. So again, just a quick reminder here, folks, that we do have a very exciting giveaway for you, especially for these live streams. So again, scan the QR code. Those of you on X, you can find the QR code in on our feed as well. Excuse me. And feel free to scan this QR code so you could get the chance at your share of 25,000 USDT in rewards and potentially more, because once you scan the QR code, you land on the Bybit page that I showed you guys earlier, and that could, potentially get you in the running for even more rewards if you complete all these different tasks, especially for new users. Don't forget, you can get a leg up on the Bybit OGs, so to speak. Okay. All right. So let's move right on. So obviously the news or markets are obsessed about what has happened overnight, right, with the US government shutdown. So now the question now is, when will it actually end? Well, the short answer is we don't know, because there's still a lot more that needs to happen, right? So here's some list of events that you need to keep an eye on. So first things first, right? So even though some Democrats, again, Democrats are the people not on Trump's side. The Trump's party is the Republicans, right? So the other side, right? Some Democrats have voted to pass along this measure to maybe support the bill to reopen the government, but it's one in a series of many steps, right? So keep in mind that all Senate members must consent, right, before it can be passed through to the House. The U.S. Congress, a quick U.S. politics lesson here. U.S. Congress has got two parts. So you got a House, got a Senate, right? So, and any single senator can actually delay this for days before it gets passed on to the House, right? So, even though Democrats saw this resounding win last week, across various gubernatorial races, including the mayor as well, and the New York mayor's race, and of course that was one that stole a lot of the headlines, right? But there are still political pressures for them, at least for some of them, to at least try and cut a deal with the Republicans, right? As evidenced by what we have seen overnight. But yeah, right now it's with the Senate, then it goes to the House, and there's really talk about if it lands in the House, everybody might have to come back within a 36-hour notice. So that's another couple of days there. But then ultimately, right, both chambers of Congress have to agree to this before it lands on President Trump's desk and then requires his signature. All right. So already we know that the ongoing shutdown is the longest in U.S. history. Like I said earlier, there is, of course, anyone would be just guessing. I think even these U.S. lawmakers on Capitol Hill, they themselves are guessing as well, because they're still doing a lot of negotiating. Already, you've had members of the Senate who actually come out and say, no, they disagree with what their fellow Democrats have done. There are still parts of the bill that they want to negotiate, right, around many different parts of the bill. For example, how long the U.S. government, the U.S. federal government should be funded for. I think right now some parts of the government will be funded until January 30th only. Other agencies might be for a year. So yeah, lots of things to iron out, right? So the short answer is we don't know. But there is pressure building because Thanksgiving is coming up. So we know that Thanksgiving is one of the major holidays in the U.S. As somebody who spent almost 8 years in the States, boy, do I love me some Thanksgiving football and some turkey, right? But, I'm now trying to enjoy it from Abu Dhabi, where the Thanksgiving celebrations are a lot more muted, perhaps confined to just some hotels here in town. But still, right, we know it's a major holiday season. There's a lot of people traveling, right? And if the federal government is still shut down, things like airport control, right, or flight control, or these other many agencies are not operating. So it really, really puts a dampener, to say the least, on people's Thanksgiving plans, right? So there is some talk about, we're a couple of weeks away from Thanksgiving. So can we see the U.S. government shutdown end within the next couple of weeks, or 17 days to be more precise? Only time will tell. But clearly markets are already reacting to what is seen as good news for these risk assets like cryptos, Bitcoin, stock indices. For them to keep going higher, at least from a fundamental perspective, they need more of this kind of good news, right? Now, if you're asking me why, the short answer is, well, because more people can get money, right? So, and I'm not just talking about the government employees, the federal employees, who get their back pay and then can go have a nice Thanksgiving, or at least Christmas isn't ruined for them, right? They get money, agencies get money, then businesses can go about with their different projects that they have with the federal government. But then also from the Fed side, right? Keep in mind that they have already spoken about how this US government shutdown is delaying the release of key economic data, be it CPI, that's inflation, or the non-farm payrolls, which is just a funky way of saying the jobs data, right? These two are arguably the most important data that every investor and every trader in the world basically keeps an eye on, right? or if they are not, then they should, right? Because it speaks to the overall health of the US economy. And the Federal Reserve, the US central bank, the most important central bank in the world, relies on that data as well. So we know they've got a meeting coming up in December, and if they've got more data, then they've got a clearer picture about what to do with interest rates, whether to cut interest rates or keep them at current levels, right? In fact, let me just pull up some live numbers for you here. Right, so as things stand, or as we speak right now, markets are currently predicting only a 67% chance, a 2 in 3 chance that the Fed can actually cut by at their December meeting, right, December 10th. Okay, if you go back to about before the last Fed meeting, let's say 10:10, I think those numbers were as high as Yeah, there we go. So 94%, right? So markets have clearly reduced their expectations for whether or not the Fed will actually cut interest rates. Keep in mind, interest rates tends to see them more money flow into the economy, right? We want to go into the whole econs 101 lesson because they'll take a whole half-hour lecture there. But the idea is that risk assets like stocks, cryptos, right, and even gold, even though gold is not traditionally a risk asset, but these assets love it at the thought of interest rates coming down. Right, they love it when the Fed cuts interest rates, and of course, they move even before the Fed actually has a meeting on or makes that decision public on December 10th. Right, so markets are constantly shifting to these odds. Of course, then without the economic data, the job of trying to anticipate what the Fed does next, that becomes a lot harder, right? So, yeah, long story short, that's why the US government shutdown has such a big ramification, not just on the average person and the average household in the US, but also for markets worldwide. Long story short, if we see the US government shutdown coming to an end, I think this can be a good time for risk assets. But of course, the flip side can be true as well, right? So if we see one senator delay the process, or there's enough pushback for this current measure to make its way through the Senate, much less the House, and then eventually to President Trump, these delays or roadblocks could then also weaken risk-taking activities in the markets. Then who knows, maybe Bitcoin may not be able to secure that daily close above the 106,000 level. Okay, before we end, just a quick quick look at a quick check-in again on the prices. So right now, well, that's a China H, doing all right. Bitcoin, right? See, once again, just hovering around 106, just shy of 106 300 there. And gold also, I think, doing some psychological battle with that 4,100 level, and sure enough, right, moderating down below that 21-day simple moving average, a key target or the potential target price that we had highlighted even from Thursday. Okay, cool. So I think that's it for today. We'll keep you posted in these live streams that we'll do daily, not just on what's happening on the US government front, but also what's moving various asset classes. Excuse me, if there's a particular asset or even a crypto or an altcoin that you're interested in, do let us know in the comments, right? And then we'll be more than glad to try and try to do some analysis for you. Try to give me some heads up. That'd be great because doing it live, well, that can be a bit more tricky, right, when it's live. But it's just me and the Bloomberg terminal, and I'll try to see what I can do for you. Okay, if nothing else, of course, definitely, please be sure to grab your chance at your share of 25,000 USDT just by scanning that QR code. And especially for new users, you can sign up and get a leg up on some of the Bybit OGs by completing tasks and potentially earning more rewards. All right. Thank you so much for joining in wherever you are. And again, if you missed any of this, you can check them out on our YouTube playlist under the live playlist, or just check them out on X as well. Until next time, I'm Han. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, 2 p.m. GMT, right here on Bybit Learn.